Who here learned something really interesting or was given an idea by somebody else? I know you talked to people you didn't know, right? Somebody? Don't make me do this as an exercise during too. Were you going to say something? I'm sorry. During break, who here learned about somebody else's idea, passion, whatever? Go ahead.
What the ideas were?
Sure. If they don't mind you sharing.
I talked to one wonderful young lady whose idea was to get involved in promoting local talent positions in an interesting and unique way. She's trying to develop that. And also, oh my goodness, I can't tell the other one. It's too unique. It would be my place to tell it. She'll have to tell. You can tell the other one. I can? The roadkill shoes? Yes. What do you tell? I like the name.
I've had this idea in my head for a long time about roadkill shoes. So the shoe that you see on the side of the highway when you're driving by, why is there only one? So
I don't know.
You could have a whole, I think the idea has been waiting until technology's caught up. So now that we all have cameras on our phones, you could take a picture and write a story about how the shoe got there.
Very cool. All right, good. Let's do one other person from share. What did they learn about somebody else's idea or passion? Go ahead.
I talked to Steve, and he had an idea. Can I tell him? Sure. For a butter stick thing where you
very much like
shaped like a stick of butter, and you put the cold butter in it, and then like your butter stick, and then there's a little plunger, and you push on it, and you use it to put on toast and so forth and so on. And he said he shelved it because when it sat out for more than 3 or 4 minutes, the butter began to stick in there, and then you couldn't push it, and then you put it back.
After you put it back in the fridge.
Or actually put it back in the fridge.
It sits, and then the next morning you go to use it, it's stuck like it would be on a plate. And you have to break it loose, and then it goes.
It needs some jiggering a little bit, but the idea is great.
And so uniquely, or I don't know what it's called, I have a friend who made one about 5 years ago, and he had a little crank on it with a screw so that it would push the butter out, and it worked very well, whether the butter was frozen or in any stage, except when it was real soft. But he tried to sell it, it didn't sell. So I was trying very hard to do yes and, and we did some yes and stuff, and then I told him about my idea of the butter thing, and et cetera. So we were bouncing ideas back and forth, and I don't know, but I sort of applied my old thing, which is, I don't think there's a market for this thing. Do I have to pay again? But he didn't think there was a market for it either.
Today there's a market for everything. Tomorrow we can worry about the details. I don't know, somebody loves it. And I'll tell you, every time I put that image on the screen, and I don't even know if that's in market, by the way, I found it on Google, people love it. They're like, oh, butter on a stick. So I'm just saying. Yeah, go ahead. Paul, right?
Yes.
Here's the caption.
Whenever I hear some negativity about an idea, the first thing that comes to mind is pet rocks.
Oh, brilliant, right?
And
who was that?
man, I mean, if we would have critically analyzed, using statistical data, market research, who would have thought that pet rocks would have ever had a market?
Right.
And yet,
millions sold.
we all recognize that pet rocks existed.
Yeah.
So I would encourage everyone that as soon as that negative thought comes up, don't just reach for your money, but say there are some of the craziest things have come out and have had huge success.
Yeah.
So, allow the market. Maybe we just don't know where that market is, or maybe it's a market that needs to be created for or developed.
Okay, so what I want to know is, am I going to get my dollar back? Because the next subject we talked about was my other idea for this thing called a pizza pod. And we did a lot of yes-anding on this thing. And now we're going to go ahead and make a prototype and give it to some people and let it move forward, even though I have basically
And you're
said,
excited.
Peggy, well, she's been saying, yeah, let's do it. And I've been having all this reasons why not. And so now we're going to go ahead and move forward with the prototype. So you don't get my butt back?
But it sounds like, no, that doesn't count. However, I'm hoping that you won't put any more money into the yes but jar. Okay? Go ahead, Ed.
I have kind of a follow-up to your idea story. I was working in the Disney think tank team. We were trying to create a new parade, and there was supposed to be 22 really super creative Imagineers and all kinds of Disney creatives and a few of us outsiders working on this thing for 3 days trying to design this new parade. And the last day, they brought a young girl in. She was 8 years old to be part of the team, and she mostly was working on coloring books and having snacks. And we were really frustrated because we had 1,000 ideas, literally, probably, for this parade, but nothing really seemed like it was resonating exactly with us. And we were getting kind of close to the buzzer when we needed to come up with an answer. The little girl raises her hand in the back, and we said, "Yes, Mary, but do you need something?" And she's like, "Well, or do you have an idea?" And she goes, "Well, I don't know if I have an idea, but I have a question." I said, "Well, what's your question?" She goes, "Why does the parade have to be on the ground?"
Why does the what?
Why does the parade have to be on the ground? It was like dead silence in the room, and 22 people were running into the board and drawing, and ended up with a parade in the sky in the next hour. That was unbelievable, because the idea came from a little girl who shifted something to a different place, and even though we were supposed to be these creative people, we assumed automatically it was on the ground. It's a parade, for heaven's sakes, through Disneyland. So, but, so ideas can come from anywhere, and sometimes these crazy things spur brilliance.
Absolutely.
And so, that's that.
That is a great thing to share. And, just to go off PowerPoint for a second and say that I would write down one thing right now that you think is a rule in your world. So like parades have to be on the ground. Whatever that is, write down one thing that it's a rule in your world. I'm just going to build on that story because that's so powerful. A rule, something that has to be true, an assumption.
Something like gravity?
Well, like the parade has to be on the ground. So what else is in your world, in your business, what else is that one thing that like everybody assumes is what has to happen? So now that that's written down, I want you to flip the paper upside down. And now I want you to write down the opposite as if the opposite were true. Right, who wants to share? What did they first write and then what did they write second? So what's the rule? Go ahead. Can't see your name. Sherry, sorry.
This is real specific. It's not like culture-wide, but because of my struggle trying to find sitters in my business, well, I wrote 2 things. I wrote caregivers or sitters in my business must have a fenced yard. Something I've been fighting against.
Must have what? A fenced yard.
Fenced yard, sitters in my dog business.
And what's the other thing that you wrote?
We don't hire sitters with fenced yards. So it was just kind of bizarre that the second I wrote it, it was like so stupid. I just said, I'll go with what you said. But my mind immediately went to what's possible to do the advantage. And one of the concerns that I always have when people have doggy doors and they're naive about like little tiny dogs, if you go out to hear poop in the night, and a great horned owl can take the dog, little dogs out in a heartbeat. But if there wasn't a yard to go out into, they couldn't do that. So it was kind of funny that I started coming up with the other side of it.
Right. Okay, great. That's great. Thank you for sharing. What else? Go ahead, Beth.
Scott and I talked about.
Talk a little bit.
Scott and I talked about libraries a little bit, and the rule is always libraries must be quiet. But in effect, where we need to go with libraries is that libraries are buzzing with people who are sharing, collaborating, and thinking out loud. Not necessarily, I like what Scott added to that, not necessarily agreeing, but thinking and talking about their thoughts and ideas.
Isn't that great? And that little flip makes all the difference, doesn't it? Because, you know, where I live in Denver, a lot of the libraries have been remodeled recently and are reopening, but they're the same. Really. I mean, there is still very, very quiet and very subdued and very, you know, rows of books, which is wonderful. The books are wonderful, but wow, what if that rule didn't apply anymore? What if it were the opposite? It would be fantastic. Go ahead, Barbara.
I live here in Louisville, and we have a wonderful library here that was built in recent years, but they have these rooms that are kind of like conference rooms on the side that you can actually check out with your library cards, book time, you know, so you can go in there with your laptop, shut the door, be on the phone, listen to music, whatever, but an idea that you're talking about, maybe there could be a room designated like that, it could be a conference room where people who don't want to be quiet, but to share ideas could go in and be talking while they're doing whatever they're teaching us.
See where that takes it to whole new places that aren't even a monumental shift. It doesn't have to be uprooting everything that's ever been done, but it can add on to it by just changing the rules a little bit. Go ahead, Eli.
Can I go back a minute, piggyback what Paul was saying? You brought up the question of the pep. And one of the things that I talk about in my course, How to Study Photography in Spare Time, which has really resonated with a lot of people, is creating the market. You know, and in my years of studying businesses and advertising, I noticed that a lot of companies seem to do that. Like the CD, just throw it out there. It wasn't so much research and analysis, but just threw it out there with this intuition that I think people will kind of like this. And one of the most successful projects in my work in photography is that I have created some markets. And just tap somebody on the shoulder, just talk to them about, hey, can we talk, what do you think? It's like, oh, yeah, let's try it. And so it's not something like, I'm looking for a market, I'm just creating a market.
You know, it's funny on that, and I'll get keep your hand up after, so I make sure I get over to you. You know, Apple, there's these great articles about how they never do research, and I'm pretty sure that if they put me in a focus group room or a conference room, or if I'd gone to their offices and they had said, I have this thing, it's not a computer, it's not a phone, you have to pay extra for it. It doesn't have all the power of your computer. No, you cannot call people on it. In fact, it doesn't even take pictures, but it's cool. Do you want it? What would we have all said in that conference room? Yeah, exactly. We would have said no. Why would we want that? Like, I have my laptop, which is super cool and sleek, and I've got my iPhone. So why do I need an iPad? Now, I'm a whore for my iPad and everything that goes along with it. But if you had asked me that, if you had asked me what I wanted, I probably would have told you no, and most people would have. And doesn't that just take us to new places when we kind of get rid of those rules that are oftentimes just simply other people's ways of doing things? Doesn't necessarily have to apply to us. So keep that in mind, and the next time you find yourself getting stuck in things that have to be done, and maybe those are hurdles that you can't get over, turn the page over, flip it, and see what else you can come up with, because that'll take you to whole new places. It's a wonderful exercise to do on a regular basis. Eli, I actually wanted you to share what you were telling me during the break, because I think that that's a lot about how does this apply to me, which is the question I want all of you to constantly ask yourselves. So do you mind sharing kind of what you were saying?
Sure. I was sharing that in my efforts to pump up my business and get my business off the ground, and I started talking to organizations like Chambers of Commerce and small business development centers and everybody else from whom I might find some funding. The first comment that comes up is, well, you need a business plan. So what I was sharing was that everything that I've been told to do to get a business off the ground is just the opposite of what we're talking about today. It's very methodical, very pragmatic, very concrete, very black and white, business plan and so on. And you have to have a mission statement, so okay, I have a mission statement. And you have to write something about who your market is, okay, I can do that. But I was telling Tamara that when I put this together, it just didn't feel like me. It's like, I'm not sure this is what I want to do, but it's in writing now. It's in writing now, and I think we could mistakenly use that as a guide to lead us in the wrong direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and it goes back to how we started the conversation, what we talked about earlier, which is the rules have changed. So we have to come up with new rules, and we have to come up with new ways of doing business. And there are some amazing people out there doing it. And on a side note, the one piece of advice I would give everyone is find people that you think are doing amazing things and follow them on a regular basis. Don't wait for their book to come out. I was following Zappos for years before the book came out, and I'm thrilled that his book came out because now I can take notes as well. But I didn't want to wait for him to put pen to paper to tell me what he was doing well, because I can see it in their marketing, on their website. I follow Johnny Cupcakes, which I'll talk about a little bit later. He's this really amazing entrepreneur doing amazing things with apparel business. So I follow him on a regular basis. I'm constantly on their website reading their interviews because I want to know how they're doing it right now. I don't want to wait for the book. Now, I love my library and I love my books, but find 3 people that you can learn from. In fact, we're going to do that exercise in a little bit, so I'm going to be quiet, shut up, and move on. But there are people out there that we can learn from today that we don't need to wait for the book to come out. I want to get the energy back up, so I want everybody to stand up, please. And we're going to play a little game, if that's okay with everyone. I call it the silly circle. One of the keys to creativity and to imagination is active listening. Does everyone know what active listening means? Has anyone heard that phrase before? It's truly listening, not waiting to talk, right? Which is what a lot of us do. It's very easy. I do it all the time. I catch myself, right? So active listening is really about hearing what the other person is saying and really internalizing that and not thinking through your to-do list, what you want, a clever thing that you're going to say when they finally stop talking, or the other topic that you're desperate to talk about, right? So we're going to do some active listening. I call this a silly circle. We're going to get about 6 people on the outside and 1 person on the inside. We're going to count off 1 through 6. I'm going to start with number 1 and actually end with number 1. They're going to get 2 times in the circle, but it's so they can active listen. The job of the person in the center of the circle is one simple thing: to move. I don't care how you move. You can dance. Don't care, just move and talk out loud. Not reciting a poem, not your to-do list, but whatever the hell comes to mind while you're moving, looking at the people on the outside of the circle and looking at the room. Whatever it is, okay? So for 1 minute. Then we'll call time, and the next person will come in, number 2 and then number 3. Your job is then to take over where they left off. So if I'm in the center of the circle, and I say something like, oh, I didn't notice this carpet was blue, and then Tamara over here yells time, your job is to come in and take from what their last thing that they said and take your train of thought wherever it goes. No, nothing prescriptive, but you got to take it based on what they said last, okay? And the reason we do that is because it proves active listening. It forces us to active listen versus trying to think about, oh, well, I'm going to talk about my exercise routine and the great shows I watched on TV and blah, 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 right? We have to listen. Does that make sense? Okay, great. So why don't you guys just kind of gravitate over here, and then we'll do a group right here. So usually about 6, but let's see how many 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll do 7, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, number 1, go in. So I have to say that I love that they broke the rules, because I said he wasn't moving, so I said move, and they moved outside. Which I thought was great. Because I didn't say you couldn't walk, I just said move, right? So nicely done. So let's start with when you're inside the circle and you have to figure out something to say or talk out loud. How does that feel when you're in that moment?
I thought it was very freeing. You could just say whatever was on the top of your head, and I really like that.
Because it feels good, doesn't it?
I think it was the hardest for the person who started, because I had to have a creative core, the initial idea, once the idea starts, it's easier to spread it along.
Right.
I was a little bit surprised at how satisfying the whole conversation was. I mean, there were a lot of interesting ideas and observations that popped up, from the very first person right on through.
What do you think made it so satisfying?
So I was listening for a change. Yeah.
It does make a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah,
sure.
For me, it was like a laugh,
Yeah.
It's kind of like a round robin story in a different way as well as active listening, because you're kind of building on somebody else. It
most satisfying thing about it to me was that none of those alpha types had the slightest opportunity to dominate the conversation. It was democratic, like everybody got heard.
That's interesting, I've never thought about that. It's great, thank you for sharing that, that's great. Yeah, Steve, you want to say something?
Well, just that you, it was all about listening, so it was easy to listen and it was easy to shut down any other internal conversation or thoughts about what you might say, of course, until, you knew it was going to be your turn, but it really didn't matter because wherever they were at that moment, that's where you were.
Right, isn't that nice? And I think that creativity and collaboration is a lot like that, and we forget that sometimes because we're too busy waiting for what to say, but if we actually listen, the conversation would be so much better. And on the flip side, if we spent more time in the circle, just speaking freely, we would get a lot more out of the creative process as well versus worrying about what we're going to say. So we talked about inside the circle. What about outside the circle? What was that feeling like?
Focus.
Yeah, go ahead.
It was just fascinating how smart my group was. They were in their experiences and their perspectives, and it was amazing for 6 people to have that great a perspective.
It's a lot of great programs around.
I found that there was a lot of, I had a tremendous amount of empathy and compassion for the subject matter, and then I think we all as a group, just like we totally bonded. I felt like we bonded through this interacting, and so instead of, all my shit, so it was a connection.
That's a
Great job for telling.
There you go.
I found it really hard not to say something.
Did you?
Yeah.
Doesn't that show us how often we do that without even knowing? I think it's an A, I don't think it's a bad quality, it's just something we constantly do, right? So what helps you kind of get over that?
The rule not to do it. Yeah, exactly.
Put money in the jar.
Because where everybody was going off on these tangents, and then I was like, wanted to ask, we were talking a lot about these photography pictures, and I was like, who's that? What do they do? And my mind just keeps wandering. And yeah, it was the rule that was really thinking.
And curiosity is a great thing, but sometimes we get there by listening, not by asking. And we just have to remember that. And so a big part of, I think, the entrepreneurial spirit is listening and really listening with intent. And that's what I want all of us to keep doing today and in life when we're having conversations with people, is really listen and ask that they do that for us too. I think we forget to ask them to actively listen to us as well. So we're going to keep listening today. I think I said before the break that there are 7 building blocks to imaginative thinking. And over the years and being an entrepreneur, I've spent a lot of time researching what do great imaginative minds like DaVinci, what do they do? How do they act? Because that's how I want to act on a regular basis. We all know that Einstein picture with him sticking his tongue out, being kind of funny, and he was this kind of irreverent guy. And I thought, well, if that's kind of a behavior that he does, what are the other habits that we can all do? So I'm going to go over these very briefly. They're on your cards. They're the basis of the cards. And we're going to use those in a minute for a different exercise. But just as a reminder to constantly be trying to do this every single day, because exercising the creative mind is a lot like exercising the body. None of us, after taking a year off at the gym, not that any of us would ever do that, but if we took a year off from exercising, we would never go back and expect to do the same thing we used to do, right? We'd never go back and expect to be able to bench press 150 pounds or do 200 sit-ups or the things that maybe we did, because we are out of practice. And we know that. We have to warm up. We have to start at 20 pounds and then go up to 30 and then go up to 40 and then go up to 50, and there's a little pain along the way. But we know, right, to be fit, we have to exercise daily and we have to feed ourselves nutritious food. We know that. Well, the mind is no different. So to unleash the imaginative mind, we need to give it consistent fuel and consistent exercise. And if we did that for 10 minutes a day, all of us, just for 10 little minutes a day, we would get so much more. That imaginative mind would be there all the time. So the 7 that I discovered, the big ones, number 1 is create. And create can be writing in a journal, building, drawing, using your hands, whatever that creation looks like for you. But all of the great innovators and the imaginators of our day, they write in journals daily. They build things out of clay. They photograph things, whatever it is, but the action of creating should be something that we're constantly doing. Move. Now, obviously, I've made everyone get up and move a little bit. And there's that old phrase that, you go for a walk to clear your head. Well, it's actually very, very true. And it's true for a couple of reasons. One, when our left brain is preoccupied with something like running, so getting each foot down in front of the other one, or looking at the trees, it quiets it down a little bit, and then our imaginative mind's like, I've got something to say, while the other side is quiet. And movement gets the blood flowing, and it gets blood to our brain as well. So there are physiological and kind of more emotional reasons why movement is really important in the creative process. And I don't know if this has ever happened to you when you're sitting at your computer and you end up you start like this, you kind of end up down like this on your computer, and you're done, and then you get up and you grab a cup of water or you go for a walk and you're totally reinvigorated just from a 2-minute movement. So movement is hugely powerful. Expand. A lot of us are experts, and that's great. But what a lot of us can also agree on is that what do the great imaginators do? They connect a lot of dots. And to be a great imaginator, to be a great innovator, we need a lot of dots to connect. Right? That's how great innovation happens. It happens at the intersection of random, which we'll talk about a little bit later, do some exercises on that. So we want to go far and we want to go wide with our knowledge. And we're going to do something, we're going to watch a video for that as well. So don't worry about being an expert in everything. Touch a lot of little things. Learn a lot of different things. I have a lot of superficial knowledge about a lot of things. And then when you ask me to delve deep about those things, I'm like, oh, you're going to have to talk to the expert about that one because I don't know. But what I am able to do is connect relevant information in really new and meaningful ways. So find ways to expand yourself. So whether that's picking up magazines like a BMX bike magazine. I read that in the grocery store the other day. I have no interest in BMX bikes. I don't own one. I'm never going to. But I learned some really interesting things that my imaginative mind kind of took and said, oh, you can connect that with this over here about stitching. And you put those together and bam, something new happens. So find ways. And that could be interacting with strangers. Don't ever get in front of me at a grocery store because I will talk to you and ask you why you have those things in your cart, because I want to know. And it's, and people will tell you. It's amazing. If you're in a how many here work in a cafe sometimes, or here at the DaVinci Institute? Collaborate with other people, learn about what they're working on. I mean, that stick of butter has sparked more conversations in the last 20 minutes than anything else, right? So expand your knowledge. Don't worry about needing to be an expert in everything, but try everything just once. And as Ted over here can tell you, I took computer camp when I was a kid. And this was back in the early 80s. And I did not win a programming award, but I did win the I'll Try Anything Once award. So I like to think that set the stage for, trying. I mean, you want to try a new sport? I am the first one to try it. Not because I expect to do it every day or become an expert, but I want those dots to connect everywhere. And if we look at a lot of the great Edison used to have a garden that he used to walk through every single day, not because he wanted to be a gardener every day, but because he wanted that inspiration from new and interesting things. Where am I? Play. Oh, I love play. So play is more than just getting down on the floor and playing Legos, although Legos are a wonderful thing to kind of spark creativity. Play is about really kind of letting go and having fun. I mean, how many meetings do we go to where it's so serious, there's no creativity? Right? There's no brainstorming. People are just dying to get out there. And then they say, be creative. And you're like, oh my God, it's like, dance, monkey, dance, be creative. And you're like, but we've been serious this whole time. So infuse play in every single way that you can. Or you know what? In fact, here's my homework for you. When you leave today, find a park of any kind and just go down the slide, just once. You'll find it really fun and invigorating. Just do something silly. Trust. I have a feeling that people in this room do this very well, and that's about trusting your gut. Great innovators really trust what their gut tells them, not just what the knowledge tells them, because they understand that that's a lightning way of getting information to you, right? That's your body's way of telling you, we've had experiences, and I may not be able to explain it right now, but I'm telling you this is what it needs to be. So trust the gut when it comes to you, because it's very, very powerful. Lose. So the brain is the laziest muscle in the body. This is unfortunate, but it's true. It's really frickin' lazy. And it has to be a little bit because we go through life with so many inputs, right? Just right now, looking around this room, all the things I have to take in. So our brain does shortcuts. So if it wants to go from A to C, the first time it goes A to B to C. The second time, it just goes from A to C. A to C, right? A to D, A to F, A to Z, whatever it is. Our brain makes shortcuts. So we live in a world of shortcuts, whether we know it or not. Lose, hey, has anyone here ever gotten lost and suddenly you realize like you're using visual cues to figure out where you are, like navigating based on the sun, like you're doing ridiculous things trying to figure out where you are, but that's your creative side taking over because your synapses can't make those shortcuts anymore. So get lost. Take a walk in a neighborhood you've never been in before. Talk to someone you don't know. Learn something new. I mean, there's so many ways to get lost physically and mentally. Go down a rabbit hole on Google. How easy is that to do, right? You type in one search and then you just go from there and you'll be amazed what you find. But we want to get out of the world of shortcuts and we want to do things in a new way. And dream. Dream isn't just about daydreaming and living up here in our, in our heads, although it's a wonderful thing. It is about having the what if game and doing visualization. If you look at the stories of the great imaginators, there's a lot of visualization, a lot of what if, a lot of thinking about the end game before they're even there. So these are the 7 building blocks to imaginative thinking. They're on the cards, which is why they're kind of my gift to you, is to take a couple home and actually use them. Because when you start doing this 10 minutes a day, like exercise, make it part of the mental diet, the imaginative mind starts to open up and starts to play every single day, not just when you're in a room like this with me. Okay, I don't know why I put Wonder Woman up here except for it shocks people, so there you go. Because we're about creativity and doing things different, one of that is getting a new perspective. So what I would like you to do is grab your things.
Is that you?
Yes. Yes, it is. I wish. So grab your things. I want you to... I am honored. That's like the best compliment I've had in months. That's Linda Carter.
Once you wear your street clothes as your own.
Is is it too much information? Now you guys have made me lose my train of thought. See? Okay, thank you. Grab your things. I want you to find someone who has a similar suit card to you, and I want you to go sit by them. So wherever you're sitting, you're going to move. Okay, so if you're sitting in the front, I want you to sit in the back, vice versa, share tables, but sit next to someone. And if you have 2 cards, just pick the one you want to use. Okay, new perspectives lead to new thinking. So we're going to keep going from here, but thank you for playing along with me. So we talked a little bit about connecting the dots, right? And seeing new ideas in places that we don't always look. So I want to share some stories with you, and then we're going to play a little bit ourselves. I want you, and it's on the back of your orange sheet too, there's this question. Where are your bridges and boot camps? And that's what we're going to focus on right now. I want you to find your bridges and your boot camps, and I'll tell you what I mean. Years ago, what's that? And t-shirts, sorry. Years ago, thank you. Years ago, the founder of Arc'teryx Backpack was walking down the Lower East Side of New York City. It was a beautiful sunny day. In the back of his head was percolating this thought: how can I make hiking more comfortable? How do I make it a more pleasurable experience for myself? And we live in Colorado, and as most of us know, if we've ever hiked with an uncomfortable backpack, you don't care if there are beautiful wildflowers at your feet and cascading waterfalls, and you may even spot the first unicorn. You don't care, right? Because your backpack's uncomfortable. All you can think about is going back to your car and getting that damn backpack off. So this is the thought that's percolating through the founder of Arc'teryx Backpack's head. And he can't quite figure it out. Like, what do I do about this? Well, he turns and he sees something. Oh, he sees the Brooklyn Bridge. Interesting. And a light bulb goes off for him. Now, most of us, if we looked at the Brooklyn Bridge, we might see a national treasure. We might hear a lot of traffic. We might just see a big hunk of cement. But that's not what he saw. What he saw? Exactly, suspension. And the light bulb went off for him. So his antennas were up. He saw that suspension, and he said, wait a minute. I can apply that suspension, because what does suspension do for a bridge? Well, it evens out the weight, it distributes the weight, right? And it's kind of a shock absorber, so I can do that for my backpacks. I can apply that to my backpacks, and a multi-million-dollar business was formed. But he wasn't looking at other hiking gear, he wasn't looking at other camping gear, he was looking at bridges, something outside his usual playing field. Arc'teryx Backpacks is ARCTERYX. ERYX, I think. They're here, they're everywhere. They're in REI. You can find them everywhere. But I love the fact that he figured out the design for his backpacks by going a little bit outside the day-to-day, by going to the suspension, but not in other backpacks, to a bridge, to an aha. Years ago, I started a fitness business. This was one of my many businesses. This is one of the more successful ones. I had gotten really fat after I got moved in with my boyfriend, and then I got engaged, and I thought, oh my God, this is not how I want to look going down the aisle. I'm 200 pounds. This is a problem. So I thought I need a weight loss program, but I tried everything out there, right? I tried Weight Watchers, I had tried Slim Fast, I had tried the gym, like how many of us have those gym memberships we never use, right? I tried all these things, and it wasn't working for me. Now, a lot of that is my fault, and there's a lot of excuses built in, but it wasn't working. And I remember being at work one day, and I was getting a performance review, and my manager said to me, Tamara, tell you what, this is what we're going to do. These are the things you're doing well, so we're going to do more of these. These are the things I need you to work on, so every week we're going to check in, and I'm going to see how you're doing in these things. And my light bulb went off. I was like, oh my God, I need an accountability partner in fitness. If I had an accountability partner, this exact same thing would apply. So that organically turned into this boot camp business and a couple studios across the country and a nationally published book. But it happened because my manager said to me, we're going to check in every week on what you need to work on in business. And I applied that to something else. So I want us all to be thinking about, always to have our antennas up. How does that apply to me? And before we go into the exercise, so you can find your bridges and your t-shirts instead of your boot camps, Johnny Cupcakes, in fact, let me go to his page. Has anyone, I'm going to scoop up just so you can see it. Johnny Cupcakes, anyone ever heard of him? Check him out online. So it's a huge apparel business. He actually won Best Entrepreneur by Business Week in 2008. And his business is growing exponentially through the roof. You will see him in every store soon. But what's cool about him and why I kind of started following him is that he treats his business like a rock band on tour. And I thought that was amazing. Amazing to watch him in action. All his t-shirts are limited edition, just like going to a concert. He goes around the country speaking and signing t-shirts that people line up around the corner to get. He does these great rock band type things. And I was watching him one day, some of his videos online, and I thought, hold on. There is something in this for me. Wait, let me ask the question. What's the question? Thank you. How does it apply to me? And that's where the idea for the creativities came, is because I looked outside of my world and I went over to him. And I said, okay, this guy has a lot to teach me, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at apparel. How can I use apparel in my world of creativity? I wasn't stealing from him, but I was learning from him. And he doesn't know it yet, so one day when he meets me and hears all my examples of him, he'll be like, so you're the one who uses my name everywhere. But Johnny Cupcakes, it's this amazing business. But I went outside, kept my antennas up and said, what can I learn from these businesses on my fringes? He's also a speaker, so we'll probably overlap. But he's in a whole different world than I am. So how can I learn from that? The Arc'teryx backpack went to the fringes and said, what can I learn for a backpack, right? What's the initial thing that we want to do? If we're in camping, we want to say, what are other people in camping doing? But that's really just noise. And we got to get away from the noise. And to get away from the noise and rise above that sea of sameness that is we're all swimming in on a daily basis. It's out there in everything that we do. We got to look outside of our day-to-day. So here's the exercise I want you to do. I want you to get into groups of 3, and I want you to find someone with a similar number to yours. And when I say similar, I mean like if you're 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is, or if you're a jack, someone with a 10 or a queen or a king. And together, you're going to figure this out. You're going to figure out what your boot camps, what your bridges, and what your t-shirts should be. And you're going to write down 3 things, and I'll write this on the board, 3 businesses, people, or objects that you personally can learn from. And then you're going to brainstorm a little bit about how you can use those things. And that's the last exercise we'll do in this midsection. So get into groups of 3 with people with similar sets of numbers as yours. And you can get up. It's okay. All right, this is lightning round. We're not going to go so far into it that we lose sight of kind of, going down the rabbit hole. So I'm going to give you about 10 minutes to figure out the first, or 5 minutes to figure out the first part, and another 5 for the second part, because this is about tapping and starting. We're not going to answer everything today. Yes? Okay, now I want you to go to the second question, which is what can I learn or apply to me? Of those things that are inspiring or on my fringes or that I can learn from, how does that apply to me? And you may be a lot more fluid in this. You may be it may be intertwined, and that's okay. And if that's the case, just keep talking. But I want to make sure that you connect the dots to Johnny Cupcakes for me is someone I really admire, and here's what I can learn from him. Okay? So the next step is, okay, I know I've got these people and these businesses and these objects, whatever it is, that I know are doing amazing things or that I love or that I think have something for me. Now I want to answer the question, what can I learn from them? How can I apply that to me? Okay, so another 5 minutes to go for there. Okay. I'd yell, but it doesn't seem to work. All right, let's wrap it up. So, as you can tell from that exercise, it takes a little while to get going. You have break. I'm giving you time on break. Okay. So, as you can tell from this exercise, it's oddly uncomfortable, right? It feels a little weird, like who knows, what do you mean on the fringes? Where do I go from here? I don't even know where to start. Let me just talk out loud. And that's okay. This is one of the more uncomfortable exercises that we do because it gets us to new thinking and it gets us to new places. So, and actually, and I was supposed to tell you this in the beginning that I forgot. On the back of these, before we go to break, is information on our idea jam sessions. And our idea jam sessions are actually where we bring great entrepreneurs and innovative minds together to actually delve into whatever it is you want to work on. And we smash and we bash and we do these really cool exercises and we come together and we go apart. But we really delve into it versus staying on the surface, which is kind of what we're doing today, to come up with a wealth of solutions for you. And just as my gift to the DaVinci Institute and to the people here, we'd love to offer a huge discount for anyone that comes and a bonus if you sign up today. But a lot of the exercises that we're doing today are kind of the more superficial version of what we do when we get into these big sessions and we really roll up our sleeves and get into it. So, who would like to share? I heard some great, like, oh my God, yes! As I was going through the room. Who would like to share some things that came up through this exercise? I can't believe you guys aren't because I heard some great stuff over here. Go ahead.
Scott brought one of the ideas for it's called HubSpot, and it's a website that helps produce, or got a bunch of guys who produce websites for you that interconnect with each other, with other people that are interested in whatever idea you have, sort of. And Karen popped, then things pop around, we're all talking about this and that, and all of a sudden she goes, how about Idea Spot? So now I'm thinking, yeah, ideaspot.com. That'll work. I can do that. So it's like it. Anyway.
Love it. Great. Good. Thank you for sharing that. That's great creative collaboration, and it takes you to kind of go out to a different place to come back to something that works for you. Right. And I even love it better when that happens. Who else wants to share? Go ahead.
Paul is just off the charts. I was talking about businesses and the interest in business and turning around businesses that are having trouble or startup businesses. And Paul, who's been a very good student in this class, said, well, okay, you can look at nature. Talk about the fringes in nature, how nature, there'll be a fire, but then it'll reproduce, it'll grow again. He came up with Japan and the tsunami, the nuclear meltdown, and what processes are they going to be able to turn that around? So it wasn't a business, it was something else, a country. Athletes, and when an athlete gets hurt, how he or she does to rehab from that, that's a turnaround. So
I love it when you go that far too, because that's where real new connections happen and new thinking. And like I said, we don't have time to go into the whole exercise today, but we'll often do on, it's like what's in the core and then what's on the fringes, and there are questions to get there, right? So like what's on the extreme. And years ago I was working for a cosmetics company. We had to come up with a new lipstick, which is like, right? Like how many lipsticks do we need? So we looked at the extreme of cosmetics and went to tattoo parlors. And that was totally different. And then this guy in one of our idea jams is a leadership trainer, and he went to lion tamers. He went totally out to the circus to come up with really cool ideas. So I love that kind of thinking because it just goes so far and wide out of our day-to-day. It's so cool. What else? One more person, and then we probably need to break. And then there was silence. Come on, one of you. I heard so many things. One of you upstairs. Thank you, Ed.
We were talking about Peggy, and she's interested in potentially creating a kind of fine art gallery of third world country art and crafts in a very unique
Very
way.
cool.
And wondering kind of where to go for fringes, and we started talking about specialized university programs that are in global sustainability and green banks and micro-lending industries and Peace Corps and all these connections of actually networking to find not only where that would come from, but build the infrastructure.
Yeah, have you heard of Kiva.com, K-I-V-A?
No.
Kiva, it's microloans out in third world countries. And you can give $25, you could pick
Who you want to give to. The other random thing I'll say is Kickstarter.com. You put up the project you want to work on and people can fund it. It's you've seen the website. It's a very cool program too. So yeah, go ahead.
That was very inspirational to me, that idea. If I may share briefly, one of the things that you may consider is providing kids from here the same raw materials that they have in a third world country, and have them both produce that art and then form a bridge by merging them together, and now you form a bridge internationally.
Oh, I just got goosebumps.
That was amazing. Great creativity. Bravo. You guys are great. That was fantastic. Okay, we have to break, but thank you all for sharing those, and hopefully what you shared will give other people ideas and vice versa, because that was so cool to listen to. So we have a 15-minute break. I would love you guys to keep going on the conversation, and then for the rest of you, I'd love you to do some yes and conversations.